Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is a meeting of the Lakeville Conservation Commission. I'd ask the members to identify themselves, starting at this end.
Joshua Faraday,
John LeBlanc.
Bob Bouchard, Chairman.
Mark Knox.
Joseph Chamberlain. It is August 8th, 2023.
Nancy Yates, and we're being recorded by LakeCAM.
Okay, thank you. This will be a brief meeting. Let's start off with a continuation. First of all, 310 Kenneth Wells Drive. This was a notice of intent. It was continued. And do I hear a motion to continue once again?
I like a discussion. Do we have to make the motion before we have the discussion?
Yes.
All right, so moved.
Second.
Oh, well, no, I make a motion that we continue it to August 22nd at 7 p.m.
Second.
Get motion in a second.
Discussion. When I've called repeatedly to ask if we've heard from environmental partners yet, Lori told me that she had talked to Nate and that he had called them up and they were trying to find somebody new with a new set of eyes to look at it. But
Because so many people have gone and identified the wetland line, they've all already been paid by that project.
okay,
So they couldn't review it for EP.
okay,
So they had to find a neutral wetland scientist to identify the line.
okay.
That's where they stood, and I believe they found somebody a couple weeks ago.
They found somebody a couple of weeks ago.
I've heard that, and it's been a while since I heard
I
that.
guess my question is, and this, I just asked this week, how long are we gonna wait?
The last I heard, the end of last week, Lori spoke with them,
Right.
and they had found someone, and they expect to get started. So we'll see if they're true to their word.
So that's certainly a floating deadline.
Well, and this has been a month already,
Oh, yeah.
or more than a
Or
month?
more than
How
a
many
month.
meetings has it been? And they're requesting continuances, so it's not like we're on the gun to make a decision, but it's kind of an important project in town, and it really, how long are we gonna wait? Our next meeting is 2 weeks. How long are we gonna wait, or
And
until we look for somebody else?
as we go through the seasons, depending how long this takes, if they have to do a lot of, they gotta put in almost 5,000 feet, 5,000 square feet of
Replication.
replication. They don't wanna try doing that at the end of November into December. And of course, we have the ever popular question, where are you putting the snow? I'm not sure they're gonna be able to handle that one.
We could always start by sending them a letter and saying, are you serious? I didn't mean that in a sarcastic way, it just,
What would happen if we didn't approve it? Didn't approve the continuation?
nothing would happen, dude.
But it's
They would have to
not,
start over?
it's not their fault.
It's not their fault,
I
right?
think that's why we have to wait and hear from
Yeah.
EP, because now if they found somebody, we'll get an update, and hopefully at the 22nd meeting that we're continuing to, we'll have at least environmental partners' answers.
Right.
Okay.
And then at that point, I think that's when we make a decision, do we send a letter, or we see progress at that point?
I guess in the future, I guess we should ask for some kind of a, when do you think you could be able
Schedule,
to
yeah.
get this started?
At least
some
keep
kind of
us
a-
in the loop, right?
It's actually allowable under the regulations to ask for a time frame.
Right. I'm just saying it's taken a really long time, and even though it wouldn't come back on us, kind of does, because keeps continuing, because our consultant, and they've always been good in the past, which is why I'm kind of hesitant to say, should we look for somebody else, because Environmental Partners has been good to us in the
There's
past.
nothing that says we can't talk to them informally. You know, how long do you think it might take? Is there anything we should be doing on our part just to keep it in the loop, So we can,
And it is what a wetland scientist would identify as a problem site.
exactly.
It's not something you can go in there, here's the slope, here's the water, there's the
Yeah, so we
line,
don't get
it's not one of those
Or
deals.
we'd like to see something by our next meeting, doesn't have to be the whole thing, we'd like to see some kind of progress by our next meeting.
I think that's what we have to say at the next meeting, because we're waiting for EP's response now. And they're gonna say, well, we haven't even seen, or we just got the response from environmental partners, they just reviewed it, we need 2 weeks to review. So that's why I think
Okay,
that's,
But you say they found, you said last week, they
That
said
was
they.
only a rumor, so I wouldn't
Oh.
wanna,
Okay,
but maybe we can get some more intel through
Do you want me to reach out to Scott Turner?
I was
Sure.
going to, but since Nate did, but if you want to, cause you worked
But
with him
Nate
before through
already
the
did.
planning
They
board,
already
yeah,
did, yeah.
I
the.
do.
I'll talk to Nate first, and then if
Okay.
it seems like it would be,
Strictly on the, low level.
yeah, and not making any
Informal.
decisions, it's just really to
All right,
see if there's a timeline on their part.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to Nate first to see if he had something, and if not, I'll then pursue it with Scott.
Okay.
Thank you. It just feels like it's really
Everybody in
dragging
agreement?
out.
I agree, I
Okay.
agree.
Okay.
So we had a motion and a second. Do we need a vote?
To continue to August 22nd at 7 PM.
Yeah,
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any other discussion on that topic? All right, let's move on then to, actually the only hearing as such for 17 Hitching Post Road. This is a request for a certificate of compliance. It's been around, this site's been around for a while.
Long time. 23 years.
Yeah, oh, it's nothing.
Yeah.
This site has been around for quite some time. I've been out there a number of times. I went out there last week. It's immaculate. There are wetlands to the rear, and
Everything's been long since
it's
stabilized.
been, oh yeah, it's
Is
in
this
great
one of
shape.
those, I remember we looked at one of these before, and it was like drainage
Right.
easements and things are on individuals' home lots.
Yes.
And so now a sale has come up, and they need to clear up because they didn't know
Mm-hmm.
there was an outstanding certificate of, or
Right.
an outstanding NOI on their property.
It's the way it was done back then,
Yeah.
and,
But that was my question also, is this on the road? Because we just got the, order of conditions, but not what it was exactly for.
Yeah, it's the street.
It's just for the street?
Oh, no, it's for that lot.
29.
that's, yeah.
17?
17 is, it was originally 29.
Yeah, lot
Then they
29,
converted
which is
it
now
to-
mail,
Now 17.
mailbox number.
And I noticed on this too, the last 3 pages, my personal modification
Yes,
up top. Because when you look at these 3, you can't really tell. First one, you can tell what the file number is, but you don't know who it's for or the address. So I typed in on my electro typewriter back then, who it was for, Bartlett,
Yeah.
and it was for the settlement.
yeah.
Because otherwise, sometime in the future, these are the things that come back and haunt you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've had people coming in for certificate of compliance after 26 years, and you're just trying to find the paperwork.
The file is this thick,
This,
so there's no worries about
Yeah.
identifying which piece of lot, which piece of land we're
well,
talking
the
about.
thing is true, that was all renumbered, remember? That
Right.
was renumbered twice,
Yes,
Right.
but all of those numbers are in the file, so.
right? It went from the
Makes-
builder's numbers to the town clerk's numbers, and then when we went to enhanced 911, they
Mhm.
renumbered again.
Yeah,
But the thing that doesn't change is book and page and all that stuff.
So you're happy with the
yes,
finished product?
So would you recommend that we issue a certificate of compliance?
we should. They should all be this way.
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 17 Hitching Post Road, SE 192-296.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Everybody's happy? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries.
Just a request, I guess, for the future on a certificate of compliance. Instead of seeing the order of conditions, I'd rather see the notice of intent so we know exactly what the work was.
Mm-hmm.
Septic system, well, road, drainage.
Yeah, it might have been
Everything in there
difficult.
works really well, so I don't have any problem with this. I'm just curious exactly what they were asking for.
Yeah. So I've been trying to write it down on the cover sheet, just for my own,
So you know,
but I'm
right?
gonna try and keep doing it. All
Thank
right,
you. Okay.
next, our discussion on the bylaw.
Well, Mark was supposed to be here.
I'm just gonna say, 'cause he's
I
been,
think he had some trouble with the rain.
He's supposed to be here for the bylaw, the wetland bylaw.
Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. OSRD. I'm
That
skipping
one.
right over the bylaw.
it's coming over by law, okay. Yeah, he's been showing up at a lot of
I did
people's
not bring it
hearings.
with me this time, and I had some comments, but I didn't, so,
Okay, I have copies, but that doesn't really help if you have comments, so,
right.
I mean,
Well, I know some of them are,
Let's talk about
yeah, let's talk about
it. Do
it.
your best to recall, and we can always continue.
The dock part.
yeah,
Doc?
so,
There on Long Pond, I'm just questioning if we're that specific and have that many thing about the docks, I don't think it's ever gonna pass. There's too many people on Long Pond that vote, they will come out in group to vote, because half the people on Long Pond don't even have a permit for their dock from
Yeah.
cottages that have been handed down
Yeah.
from generation to generation, and it would put up a
I-
huge red flag.
I think that's a wise decision. I think, you know, we've talked about this before, and some people do, kind of want to dot their i's and cross the t's and get that chapter 91 license, but if we put it in a wetland bylaw, I think you're absolutely right. It's just gonna kill it. I think let people permit their docks that want to permit them and get the paperwork right, but don't make it part of that.
I like all the first part of it.
no, I have no problem with altering what I presented to the commission. It's
Right.
just, you know, what I've seen and, you know, what other
And what
towns
we've
have.
talked about before,
But-
right?
Yeah, there's no point in bringing it to the town if we think it's gonna fail. I
It's
I
just that
100% agree with that as
it
well.
would, I think that's why a bylaws never passed before, because they've always been very long and lengthy and covered a lot of things. And let's face it, with the resources we have in Lakeville, almost everybody is affected. They're either near a wetland or on water. And so,
Which also makes the bylaw important.
you're
but,
exactly right. Well,
we
that's why it's,
shouldn't present something we know is gonna fail to, negate what we wanna see protected.
If you watch the Board of Health meetings, they're going through the same thing. They're well aware the water resources are very important. But when you start trying to come up with regulations that are affecting everyone down on the water on typically a very small lot, boy, it's tough to get something passed.
Yeah, no, I have no problem amending what I presented. It's just, honestly, I pulled together a lot of what I've seen,
Right.
in southeastern
Right.
Massachusetts, and, you know, I pulled it together so we could have a discussion about it.
right.
So if we think that should go because it's gonna hinder the rest of the bylaw, then, yeah, let's get rid of it.
Right. And I like the rest of it. I like stuff that we've done, like the 25-foot no touch. We did that for, what, almost 10 years
Oh,
without
at
anybody
least-
saying
at
a
least
word.
that, yeah,
And then,
and we have engineers who still automatically kind of do it for us.
and they even did the color thing, which I really like, which they don't do so much anymore, but it was really good for me looking at a plan. You know, you guys look at, we've had, and I like having people that are contractors on the board because they know how to read a plan. We've had people on this board that don't know how to read a plan, and that's been very difficult if from a strictly environmental sense. Like, you know, I would stand for the last blade of grass. We've had actual people like that, which you gotta have an overall
Yeah, big picture look.
big picture look, right? So, I like the 25-foot no touch. I don't think we need to put in a bylaw that the 100-foot, what was it? They used to do the color. I really like that. It was 100
Yes.
foot was green.
Yeah, right.
The red was 50 foot.
Right.
And the purple was a 25 foot. And you looked at it and immediately you knew. I find myself on some of these plans, like really looking where that 100-foot line goes.
I don't
Most
look at
of
them
the guys
without,
who come here a lot.
what's that?
They usually show the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not something we have to put in a bylaw. That could just be the preference of the commission. And
Right.
you can make that known to engineers and
For
they'll,
them to identify those
Yeah,
lines on the
they'll-
plan.
We used to.
they'll be more than happy to do it because
Right.
the less resistance they get from us, the beneficial to their projects. So, you know, asking for something like a colored plan, I don't foresee
And-
any of them saying, no, that's unreasonable.
But some of that stuff kind of just
You have to get
eased
3
away.
highlighters.
And when we got challenged on the 25 foot, that just kind of just went away, and it had been going very smoothly for years. I think that will be okay if we put
Yeah.
that back.
I mean, even with Mark's input on it as well, undisturbed 25 foot, and if there is some reason for someone to get into that zone, we put some type of language in there as well.
Right.
If it's someone right on the, I don't know, someone right on the water, maybe we say, okay, it's a no disturb zone, but you have the ability to put in a 5 foot wide naturally vegetated path or something like that, just so people can use that.
Or an upgrade on a septic system where they need to put that extra field, like a little closer or something that's pre-existing, on the pre-existing. I don't like variances on new construction, but
I
on
think you gotta keep
pre-existing.
it simple.
The classic, keep it simple,
I
stupid, right?
honestly
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think anything will pass in this town if it's not. Like, very simple.
And reiterate, did anybody talk to Nate
I
about
did.
what, you did talk to Nate, so
Yeah.
what Nate said about
So
like,
his clarification was that he would be in favor of a wetland bylaw that simply, reinstated the wetland laws that we have. He said anything beyond that,
chapter,
he wouldn't be in favor of it. And that would allow him, I guess, to, I don't want to quote him because I got a call the last time, but that would allow him to have some teeth in his permit process.
Right.
'Cause in the-
Whereas now, he cannot deny a permit if there's no approval from conservation. Most towns have a conservation sign off on a building permit. Lakeville doesn't,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have the right to do that. So if there
There
was
he
a
is.
bylaw that simply, said the town is voting to, whatever you call it,
except, well, I
not
mean,
accept because it's state law, but.
It's state law.
recognize.
But recognize as our bylaw, the Wetland Act.
So then, how about, how far did we get on policy? Did we ever ask town council if we can set a policy?
I don't believe so.
No, we just talked to Nate about it. And he, according to him, yes, we can.
Because
Do it all
we
the
could
time.
also do that on a 25 note, to just set a policy.
Isn't that what you did before?
We couldn't find the minutes. Our minute keeping back in the day was very sparse.
Sparse, yeah.
So when we had someone that insisted we show the minutes where we had set that policy, there were no
Couldn't
minutes to
produce
be found, so that's why it kind of went away. So maybe it's as simple as redoing a policy.
Even though it was already
I would
policy.
I would run that by
Town council.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if it's just a policy and we were to deny a project based on the 25 no
problem.
disturb, I don't think it would hold up in court.
Yeah, but if we got 9 out of every 10, that just, like I say, the engineers really want to come in and go out. And like I say, everybody was doing it for
Yeah.
all those years.
Doesn't make it right.
I don't know if that's the best
No.
way to do it.
Okay,
Doesn't make it right.
So how about this? I will take what I already supplied to the commission.
Okay.
I will, edit it appropriately and I'll
Okay.
send out another draft version.
okay. All right.
Just
And
remember,
it's gonna go on all our
keep it
agendas
simple.
from now
Yeah,
on, so we
yeah.
can talk about it. Or not,
Yeah, just,
you know, if we're too
just
busy
keep it
to
on the
talk about
agenda.
it. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Josh.
Well, I think there would have to be a larger discussion amongst the commission and the
Right.
community when we actually go to move
Right.
this forward. So,
Yes. Yep.
I guess these are more workshopping meetings than anything else.
And you obviously, you must be in contact with fellow agents in other towns, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
To see what other towns are doing.
Yeah, a lot of other
'Cause
towns.
You're at a break point there. You know,
Yeah,
because of the watershed
yeah.
and the septic system updates and the state is dumping tons of money into for the Cape.
Mm-hmm. So,
What's your nitrate level for like 5%?
I don't even know. Don't ask
It
me.
is on the Cape 5, it's 10 here, but it's 5
Yeah.
there. All right, just
I'm not
curious.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what
thank
I'll
you.
do.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Did you have to chainsaw your way past some trees to get here tonight, or?
Yeah, there were a few down trees, and, yeah.
Are you from Mattapoisett, or?
No, I just bought a house in New Bedford,
Oh, okay.
but I have a little water problem down in the basement.
Oh, no.
Wasn't major, but it's enough to go buy another shop vac.
Another shop vac.
Yes, I think I'm on number 3 or 4.
I'm very fortunate. I don't even have a sump pump in my cellar.
You
2-minute
just-
perk soil,
you just
sitting
swim
on
across?
ledge. No, 2-minute perk, sitting on ledge. Nothing.
I was gonna say, looking at your property.
If I had a cellar, if I had a leak in a pipe in my cellar, it'd run out under the cellar door. Because you come in ground level in the back, though.
Yep.
You're out. No, that's the least of my worries.
All right, I guess Mark's up, huh?
And Josh is gonna redo and
Yeah.
send us,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay, what are we doing first?
open
Open
space.
space,
residential.
OSRD.
Oh, sorry, okay. Does everyone have a copy of your thing, actually?
I have,
I do.
we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, this is a revised version of the OSRD bylaw from what was submitted to and reviewed by the, went to town meeting, and then based on some comments from Conservation and Board of Health, we've made some changes to address both boards' concerns. Specifically for conservation, one of the concerns we had was we didn't want to accept like 2 and 3 acre little pieces in case someone does a small, 3 lot OSRD, and having 3 acres or 4 acres doesn't amount to very much. So I put a 20 acre minimum size, which means 10 acres would be open space. So that's certainly a more substantial piece. Protects the value of the homes as well as whatever abutting properties it may link up to as well. So, so that was one thing that we did to address some of the conservation concerns. And the other big thing was that regardless of who owns it, that it restricted according to, Chapter 97 of Mass General Laws, which means if it's, if someone wants to take it out of and use it for another purpose, it needs legislative action, which is almost impossible to do. I mean, it can be done for very specific, public purpose reasons, but, so those are the two main Conservation Commission related items that were addressed. One other thing that I did put in, so I went to the Board of Health with this, and the adjustments we made for the Board of Health was one of their major concerns was with smaller lots, and you're locating both a well and a septic. You have to be extremely careful on the location of those things so that one lot doesn't move one of the locations, even though it said you had to provide that on the plan. If a developer is going to build it, he's probably going to make sure that he doesn't affect the buildability of the adjacent lots. But if someone's developing the subdivision and then selling off the lots, individual homeowners might move the location of the well or septic and affect the suitability of the abutting lot for development. So in order to address that concern, I put in that they either have to have public water supply or a municipal water supply, or they have to have a shared septic system or be connected to a wastewater treatment plant. And that way, on the site, on each lot, there'll only be one. They'll either all have septic systems or they'll all have wells. So that concern about cross-contamination and affecting other lots kind of is addressed. So a couple other things at their meeting, they wanted to make sure that all the conventional lots could be tested. So they agreed to do a single test hole so as to disturb as little of the open space land as possible, just to ensure that the soils are suitable in order to possibly design a system. And one other thing I added that relates to conservation is that the OSRD concept plan and the preliminary plan should have the wetlands delineated on it. And I know both are just quote concept plans, but the location of wetlands is kind of important to help determine whether the preliminary plan can be built. So it's required in here that they file an notice of resource area determination with the commission prior to any approvals from the planning board. And those are the primary changes that were made from the draft that we reviewed about a year ago.
Last page, Mark. Next to last page. Number 4, top of the page. Is the Board of Health really accepting of septic systems being within 10 feet of the front property line?
It's just a tank, I think.
Yeah, it's just a tank. So
Okay, just the tank,
yeah,
okay.
because one of the concerns is that if you do a shared septic system, they wanted all the homes to be on individual tanks, and they don't have any Board of Health rules at this point that address shared systems, so put it in here. So it addresses their concerns, and that way, if it's within 10 feet, it's easy, and there's an easement. The homeowners association, if there's 10 houses, they pump all 10 houses at the same time. It's paid for by the association. And so you don't have to rely on some homeowners pumping their tanks and some not, so that you maintain the health of the shared septic field, which is what one of their
I was
big
thinking
concerns
more
is.
about placement, because it's typical, there's the foundation, then you get the 10 foot, then you get the tank, and then you get the field, and typically that's kind of in a straight line, but you wouldn't be able to do that there.
Well, this would only be in a shared system.
shared system.
Shared system
Okay.
down the street
Okay,
somewhere.
okay.
That's correct.
All right.
Me? John?
No, look to Bob, not me.
Okay, well, if you're looking at me like, okay, on the first page where it said that the planning board may invite representatives to the pre-application meeting, I think it would be nice, it doesn't necessarily have to be in here, but if the Board of Health and Conservation could get notification of the pre-application meeting, because I don't always see, I suppose you can always be vigilant and go on and see the planning board,
And check the schedule,
and
yeah.
check the schedule and look at the whatever, but it would be nice if we knew when that pre-application meeting's coming on, because after the pre-application, when do the boards get the, through you, Mr. Chairman, when do the boards get the plans? Like right now on a subdivision plans, it goes out to all the boards.
Yeah, well,
So where does it happen in this
It would be the
process?
same thing, because they're filing a preliminary subdivision plan.
On the pre-application,
No, the pre-application is just an informal meeting, that's all that is.
but it's gonna be at a planning board meeting.
Yes, Well, it's to present the concept to the planning board and just kind of get some general feedback. Those would not be, you know, any sort of very significant detailed plans sometimes.
But we wouldn't want to be advised that it would be happening, right?
Well, it may or may not be happening after the planning board meeting, so.
Oh, okay.
But it's always nice to know
Get a little
upfront
heads up
what's
once in a while,
coming.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right, and if they would have already been to us, but then we'd like to see that next step too,
Doesn't the planning
so.
board typically notify the other agencies and get their input on any subdivision plan?
Yeah, the only thing that's different about this is the planning board would be notified of this preliminary plan.
Yeah,
Whereas.
But you'd be looking at it at a planning board
No,
meeting.
No, not the preliminary plan. The preliminary
well, the
plan,
pre-
everyone
the
would get
pre- the
notified.
Preliminary meeting.
It's just an informal conversation. It's.
When
you have to
an
call it
actual
something.
plan is developed,
Right.
it would still go to the 10 boards or departments first, before the planning board sees it.
Okay.
Because that's what happens with a subdivision plan. Goes to the fire department, police department, Concom. Every department head gets a copy, every board, commission, Board of Health gets it.
That addresses your concern, right?
Well, I guess now I'm on 3 back, number 10. So you're gonna go from a pre-application meeting to a preliminary, it says, number 10 says if the preliminary, conventional, and conceptual plans are approved, the planning board can allow the submittal of combined special permit and definitive subdivision plan. So
Yes.
I guess I'm just wanna understand what the stages are here.
So I think, yeah, so the first step is just an informal meeting.
Yes,
Okay, that's what's on the first page. It's just an informal meeting.
Sort
no
of a take the temperature of the
notification.
planning board.
okay,
Yes, that's all it is. Next
Okay.
step would be they develop the actual preliminary subdivision plans and the concept plan for the open space
Okay,
development.
so-
That is a regular that is a regular preliminary plan application.
and we'll all get a
And
copy.
everyone gets
Okay,
notified.
nice,
Then if both plans, the concept plan and the preliminary plan are approved, then they file for the special permit and the definitive subdivision plan as a single application.
all
And it
right.
gets noticed as such.
So between the pre-application meeting and the next step, they'll be coming to Concom. They
Yes.
don't have to go to Concom for the pre-application meeting?
No,
Okay,
but they will have to for the preliminary, before the preliminary plan is approved, because it says in there that at the very least, they come in for an ANRAD.
right, okay, I
Okay.
got that, I got all that part,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure the
Yep, no,
stages
no,
of
no,
how we're going
it's
along.
okay.
All right, and I did try to call you a bunch of times today. What else? Okay, my other thing is dedicated open space. I was kind of wondering Josh's take on this too. On the dedicated open space, it can be it's a minimum of 50, but it can be 40, but then between now what page am I on here? Third page, 1, 2, 3. So between 2, 3, and 4, you have stormwater can be in there, in the dedicated open space. Detention or retention basins may be located in the open space. And dedicated open space may be utilized as natural courses for disposal of storm drainage from impervious surfaces. So how small can we get down to here if all of this stuff happens?
So, there's also a section in here which says the area of the drainage system in an open space is subtracted from the calc. In other words, you don't count that. It's excluded from the land area calculation. So if you have a couple basins that total an acre and it's within the open space area, it's exempt from the total. You need 21 acres, not 20. So it's the same thing with the septic system. If there's a shared system and you need the main part and the reserve piece, and that's an acre, you need 21 acres, or if they're putting drainage in there, you need 22 acres. So, because you're really calculating still on a 20-acre piece, because you don't count those other 2 acres.
But you got your, all right, so say that you let them do 40%. So you got 40% of open space and all that, none of that was calculated in, but this still says that you can use that open space for stormwater management, detention or retention basins, so
But it's
tell me how it's not being.
Well, it's not part of the calculation for the amount of open space required for the subdivision plan.
Right.
So,
So like if the land naturally flows toward a certain area, so you run your drainage in that area, but that's also where your open space is, you would have.
There were 3 extra acres, or 2 extra acres for the drainage,
Mhm.
plus the 50%.
And you can't change
Or
the
40%.
slope by more than 3 feet.
That's correct.
So on your 40% of open space, you can have stormwater or detention retention basins,
Mhm.
but it's not on the 40%. It just doesn't seem like it reads like that. Uses for open space.
So at the bottom of that paragraph, Nancy, it says
Yep.
roadway layout shall be excluded from the open space land area calculations. We could add the word
Where?
at the,
Bottom of 1.
Okay. Bottom of 1?
yes.
Okay.
So where the last sentence says roadway layout shall be excluded from the open space land area calculations, we can say roadway layouts and drainage basins shall be excluded.
isn't that covered in number 3? Detention or retention basins may be located in open space. However, this land area may not be counted towards the minimum open space required.
Yep,
It is.
yes, it's covered there too, yes,
Oh, okay.
yep. I was just.
No, I
Yeah.
understand.
Okay. It's just the way it read to me. It sounds like, okay, well, you can't count it in there, but then there's your open space and it's on there. But if everybody else seems to think that that's not how it works,
Well, now there's 2 spots that clarify.
okay, yes, okay. That's all I had.
Mark, have you heard any comments from the Board of Health on this, once this was circulated? Or had a chance to talk
I
to?
sent this version to Ed on Monday, so I haven't heard anything since.
Okay. Did you, schedule to get on their agenda to talk to them yet? Or not yet?
No, I think they might meet again next week, so I was waiting to get some feedback from Ed to make sure I made the adjustments based on their meeting last week, that's all.
Good.
Either a question for Mark or Mark, I don't know who's more appropriate to answer it. 7.10.6. The open space shall at the planning board's election be conveyed to, and then it describes either conservation commission or select board. How do you plan on making that determination on who would be accepted?
I think it boils down to a more of a, who will take it?
Yeah, who wants it? Who wants to be
Because in the
responsible?
past, the Conservation Commission that says, we don't want open space. We don't like it.
But we don't have a capacity to manage it, do we?
I don't
Do we
ever
need
remember
to?
everybody saying they don't like open space.
We don't wanna deal with small lots that are not contiguous to other properties, similar like. We'd like to get stuff in a line.
I mean,
But
this is
it's
saying for open space or a park, we're not gonna maintain a park.
No, and that's why it would be deeded, that's why the selectmen are there, or should the Conservation Commission not want a particular piece, the select board still can accept conservation land and hold it under the authority of the select board as opposed to the commission. For example, Betty's Neck is under the authority of the select board and not this commission, so.
And who maintains that? Park department?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What are the responsibilities and liabilities of the town that accepts a piece of property like this? Nope, not a problem,
It would be the same as any other property that we have.
which is to say a lot or a little?
I would say probably, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's not a,
Can you sue the
I mean,
town if you fall down?
you know, obviously, you know,
I don't think you can.
You can
we'll
try it.
walk and inspect the open space. I mean, if you know of like a deficiency in the property, I mean, regardless of whether it's a sidewalk, you know, or, you know, a giant old well in a piece of open space, and you know about it and you don't do anything about it, then you are liable.
Right, you have to
As-
take
but-
reasonable,
But if you take, you know, reasonable precautions, and then you are not, or you're unaware of it as well, so.
you have to take, if you take reasonable precautions, like we had, for example, at Betty's Neck, we had a trail that went around that side of the cliff. The cliff started to deteriorate and the root was there, so we definitely discontinued, do not enter, closed off that trail and rerouted it around, so we took the reasonable precaution, so if somebody decided they're gonna go out there and walk on that anyway, they couldn't really sue us because we took reasonable precaution.
I think I've fallen off that cliff at least once in my life, long before there was a trail there.
Pushed.
No,
It's a dedicated open space. It's basically like having a conservation restriction, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is anyone going to be responsible for actually, going out and making sure that it's being maintained as open space, or any encroachments from a property owner who may live along the property line, that they're not, doing something on that property they shouldn't be?
Well, you know, generally, if, in other communities, you know, the conservation agents do check properties and, you know, and the other thing is, there'll be more than one homeowner in any of these association, new developments, right? And so if a homeowner is doing something he shouldn't have been, you know, the other homeowners, usually someone calls the Conservation Commission office or the planning office and says something, and then, the town goes out there, addresses whatever it is. Sometimes it's, some kids that were out in the woods and, someone has to go out and pick up some beer cans, or, a sign that said conservation disappears and you want to put up a new, the agent gets a new sign made and put up. So, but generally, in other communities, so when I was in Foxborough, they had hundreds of acres of town-owned properties. And the amount of time that he actually spent dealing with issues was very small. But, every now and then something comes up, just as in one of the
Sure.
parks or any other piece of town property.
We get 1 or 2 a
now,
week.
Josh, how many acres does the town of Wareham hold?
Oh.
Lots.
Yeah.
And I drive through hundreds of acres
Yeah.
just to get to my house.
Hundreds of hundreds, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you in some regard. Neighbors are good at policing neighbors.
Yeah.
I get probably 30 phone calls a week about some issue a neighbor has with a neighbor. But with
Give me a
that,
heads up if my name comes up, okay?
with that being said, the Wareham Land Trust owns a lot of space in
Yeah.
Wareham, and they do annual monitoring of their properties, and they do find issues on those monitoring site visits. So it can kind of go both ways, I guess.
Well, just last week, we got a phone call from someone who was complaining that the wells were being contaminated with marijuana.
Wow.
And were we gonna do something about it? So,
What wells? Where?
Sounds like
town wells.
Town wells.
Interesting.
So, if you come up with any good ideas, let me know, because we've yet to act on it.
Sounds like a saleable product.
So what do you need from us tonight, Mark?
Well, it's gonna-
feedback.
Yeah, any feedback, any other changes you'd like to see? If not, either an endorsement of this or you'll take it under advisement at a future meeting. The planning board's going to discuss it on Thursday. That's why we came to vote this board and Board of Health beforehand, so that we could add in any final adjustments to this. And then we'll see where the planning board stands on all these revisions. And the warrant closes the end of the month, so if we address the issues here and at the other board, and the planning board's okay with this draft, as this is similar to what we submitted a year ago, the board might vote to resubmit it.
So you're trying to get on the next town meeting?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the goal.
What's the date of that?
It's in November, but
November
11?
something, yeah, just,
but
I wrote it
the
on my
warrant closes the end
Early.
of, yeah, the end of August.
Gotcha.
question for you, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
We're not breaking new ground here. There must be other towns that have done similar stuff.
There's hundreds of
Okay,
examples.
and this has worked well, right?
Yes, this
Okay.
this
That's
has
how
worked well.
this idea came in the first place, is that you're familiar with towns that had done something like this and it seemed to
Yes.
work out fairly well.
Yes, many of actually in Massachusetts, I can't tell you what percentage, but more likely than not, if you threw a dart at a map of the state, that community would have had, and if that community doesn't have an OSRD or a cluster development or whatever they call it, one of the other abutting towns, if not several of the abutting towns, will have it.
Any other issues? Should we wrap things up? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to get a chance to really read it. You guys up for passing this tonight?
Hey, you're gonna have a public hearing, right?
Yes, we will have to have a public hearing
Have a public hearing, so.
after it gets submitted to the select board.
So right now, we have no major problems, I guess, is, we'd like to digest it a little more.
And put it on the agenda for the 22nd.
Or we could have an agenda to continue discussion.
And then we'd send comments back to the planning board.
It
If
would
any.
have to be quick turnaround,
Right,
because
so that
warrant
probably affects
closes.
your warrant, doesn't it? If we
Yeah.
continue it out to our next meeting and then you want our comments to go
Well,
in front of
the
the planning board?
advantage is if we meet on the 22nd, have a comment or another edit. Planning board meets the 24th, 2 days
Okay.
later,
Okay.
so we could have it on our agenda. Do
It's
that
gonna
then.
be off that week.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So Kathy can make any final edits or changes, so.
Yeah, I mean, we can communicate
Yes,
to do
yeah.
that, so I could,
Yeah, I'll leave my phone off, maybe.
I don't blame you.
You're not going off the planet, are you?
No.
Okay.
So for planning purposes, our next meeting is gonna be on the 8th. From the
22nd.
Is the 22nd. And then after that, it's up in the air. We don't have any scheduled hearings yet.
you had surgery or something coming up in
Yeah.
the first meeting in September?
In September.
They're rebuilding you again?
Well, we're gonna try.
So whereas this was just discussion on our agenda, we really don't need to make a motion as much as we'll just put it on the agenda
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
22nd and have that continued discussion to send comments.
Right.
So, one more item on the agenda then, Mr. Chair.
Okay. What was that? I'm sorry.
I think there's one more item on the agenda then, if we've concluded,
Did I skip one?
No, there isn't.
Conservation land,
There is.
Island
What
Road.
about, what else we?
you didn't get the revised one,
You
Joe.
didn't get the revised one.
Evidently
No, I
not,
didn't.
what's on there?
There you go.
Island Road
Discussion on-
Conservation.
I said that before, I'm surprised you didn't go
Oh.
right, your ears didn't
I
go
forgot
right
that.
up. Seeing as that's on your road. Yep.
Pass those down.
Is this Glenn's stuff?
Yeah.
This is the most bizarrely shaped lot in Lakeville,
You
I
got an
think.
extra one there, John? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is Highland?
Yeah.
Right near the bridge, going over 140.
This is Route 140, and that's Highland.
Okay.
So that's 1 Elliott Way,
Oh, all right.
so it's Glenn Crystallini's property?
Yeah.
That's town property,
Wow, that's a big,
but it's part of the Vickers property.
okay. Yeah.
Oh, look at that, color
So
code.
I think
You mentioned that
Mark
I know.
will,
You
I think
thought
he wants to keep
the
this
town
as house
system
lot
used to be able
somehow
to do this.
No, it
here
still
and
can.
It
give
still
to the
can,
town.
you just have to
Leave
push the right buttons.
access, or Sell it to the town, which would give from Highland access right through to,
Yeah.
Pickens, where the Cowboy Shack is.
That's quite a stretch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
long ways. 'Cause that-
So, yeah, so I gave you three maps. So as Mark mentioned, this is Glenn Crystallini,
Yeah.
who owns this long linear property on, adjacent to Route 140 off of Highland Street. So I gave you an aerial photograph of the entire thing so you can see what's here. On the north side, there's a bog with a small pond closer to the highway and a field. As you go down toward to the south of the property, you pass a barn that he'd like to retain, as well as a large pond. There is a house in the middle of the property, along with a bunch of small animal sheds and barns. And then
And a
as
microwave relay tower, don't forget that.
What?
Don't forget the microwave relay tower.
Yes, and then as you head down toward Highland Road, there's a cell tower,
Here,
and then you get out to the
This
way
piece is the
that's
back
called
piece
Elliott
here.
Way.
those would be the ones he was looking to
So,
convey to the town.
so the second map,
My question would be, is this public way to access?
the second map is just a big zoomed out map that shows his property in yellow, and then the town Vickers property in green, and adjacent to it in the red hatch marks is Wildlands Trust has a CR on several properties here, so I'm showing.
That's Joni's stuff.
That is
Yeah.
Yes,
red?
that's
It
Joan. Yeah, that's approximate outline. I don't know what.
So it's
the
surrounded by conservation.
Exactly, so that's to show you that it's surrounded by conservation land. And then you can, at the very top of the map, you can see the Elder's Pond sticking down, and a lot of that land is all still undeveloped. There's some wetlands, and there are another piece of municipal land somewhere over in that area, which I didn't pull up.
The kind of star-looking pond there, and that big area, that's all mine. With the long
Bragging.
finger
Yeah.
down over here. No,
Eleven.
Yeah,
I
no.
butt up to the housing development over here.
Yeah,
Is yours-
11B, right?
11B, yeah.
Are you in any kind of a conservation restriction on your property?
Yeah, it's
61.
61, yeah,
B.
chapter 61B.
So, and then the third map is zoomed in onto Glenn's property, and it shows outlined in blue the approximate areas that he would like to sell to the town. On the north is the area where, including the bog, if you refer to the aerial, you'll see the bog property running down to somewhere behind the barn. He hasn't decided exactly how far, but he does not want to sell the barn, and I don't think we want to maintain another barn structure, right? So, so that whole north side, there's a pond, there's the bog, there's some fields, so, and it abuts the Vickers. And then on the south side, that property would, again, there would have to be, so there's a trail that runs through this south side property that goes all the way up to the end of the pond, which is very close to the Vickers property. So we would have them convey a small stretch behind the pond so we can attach to the Vickers property and connect to the trail that runs through this property. The trail runs from the pond all the way out, almost right to the edge of Elliott Way, where it begins on the property.
Is it 101 acres, is it?
I'm not sure, I didn't think it was that big.
Yeah, I think it's 101 acres.
Okay.
So,
But that might include the cowboy shack across the street.
so this particular property is a total of 40 acres, and he's thinking of selling to the town, approximately 30 of the acres. So, so the purpose of coming here tonight is to gauge the commission's interest in if the town was to negotiate something with Glenn about acquiring the property, would the commission be willing to accept the land so that we can attach it to, because we do own the abutting conservation Vickers property.
Could I speak to that, Mr. Chair? Sure. I didn't go on the site walk, but I understand that both Mark, you and Nancy went. I talked to my wife who went.
Yeah.
So she had said some of it was a little bit messy. I think Glenn acknowledged he needed to do some cleaning out there. I think that would be a condition of if it would be wise for that to be cleaned up for the town to do that, just so the town's not buying a
Well, so that
mess.
other people like us or all open space can go, he's going to clean up some of the trails prior so that the boards more people can go. But there's one other thing, you didn't outline, he also has, if you look to
The easements,
he's got a 30-foot easement on the top of this piece, on this road to Old Stonewall
That
Road.
connects to Old Stonewall.
Yeah,
Drive.
he has that, he has a 30-foot easement there, so there's another.
Amy had talked about that. I think
Okay.
that might be beneficial for maintenance access, but I don't think that's something we want for public access. I think that would probably irritate some folks on that road.
But it's
That said, I guess, back to if the town were to enter a negotiation with this, cleaned up, and then my concern is access from Highland Road. It would seem like this is gonna be open space, that there could be walking trails. I guess I'd wanna make sure that off of, Elliott Way, that is suitable public access.
Yeah,
And
so,
that we'd have like a little parking area on that end, kind of like Cowboy Shack's parking area. I know that's across the road from this piece, but to have proper access, to make sure that we just legally and through what he's proposing to do, that he also, everything complies with zoning,
Right.
'cause I don't know.
so we had talked about having an easement over Elliott Way in order to access the property. So he would need to see how there's this funny tail
Yeah,
along Highland Road. That's what gives the parcel its frontage.
Yeah.
So he needs to maintain that and then run it straight back along Elliott Way, where it'll fatten out around the house and the pond.
and so to me, that's like, it's almost like a talk to council about that legal access.
Right.
Being, you're really looking for an easement for the public.
That's correct.
So, probably, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I would not want to be the one to draft that. I think that we should leave that up to
Yes,
lawyers.
absolutely, yes.
What do you
But
think? What do you think
we
of
did
the-
discuss it, and
What
he
do you
is,
think of the road going down there, the driveway?
oh, it's got a little pitch to it.
Is it paved? Is it
Thinks
paved?
there's more to it
What's
than
that?
that.
Is it paved?
Oh, yeah, it's paved,
It is.
but it's, I mean, you couldn't put that road in. You guys would not approve that slope, right? It can't be more than what, 7%?
Yeah, something like that.
And I know that's what was 7%. That,
It's better than it was.
And is that a private way? Oh,
Well,
it's what?
he said he would give an
it
easement
is, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
private
in,
way.
because as you get down, there is a trail that goes, it's a pre-existing trail.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That connects to
My only
Vic-
point
Vickers.
is, I just think all of that easement discussion and access and legality should be part of the discussion for that. I'll call it a negotiation.
Yes.
But I mean, that should be very clear for the
Mhm.
town to enter into this agreement, if they're going to, that all that is possible.
Okay.
If,
Right,
if it's not
right.
possible, it just seems like, well, great, we just made a bigger landlocked piece.
Right. So,
So I support it. It's just, I think that those couple of little hurdles that we just need to make sure can happen.
yeah, aside from just some general discussion, he said he'd clean up whatever's out there, but, you know, I may want, there's some piles of just, you know, dirt and other stuff. We may want those moved. We may want things cleaned up a little bit more than just moving the few derelict
So-
trucks out there.
Who maintains Vickers now?
Conservation,
We do?
Yeah, Vickers.
Who mows that lawn?
the highway department.
Okay. And that would be the same, whoever takes care of that would take care of these trails and keeping them clear and all that stuff?
Well, highway doesn't really take care of like my trails at Betty's Neck.
Who maintains the trails at Betty's Neck? If it's like a tree
They have
falls.
volunteers.
One of my neighbors and his friend.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
They
A
load-
fair
they
question.
load up the ATVs and go up there and
you know,
take care of
the
it.
town comes in and does like, mows around the fields for people to
A
hike
walking
around the
path.
fields, right? And next to the building, because, you know,
So is there anything on these two parcels that will need to be maintained like that?
well, the trails,
just keep trails clear.
yeah.
And you have volunteers that could do that?
My volunteers are for Betty's Neck. I don't know if I don't even know the trails that well at the Viggers. You know, Sarah Kulikovich took that upon
Yeah,
herself.
yeah.
She was a Concom member and she took that whole thing upon herself to take care of that. So you need, some people need,
She's
it
been gone
needs
for
some
some
love.
time. Is it still being maintained or? Vickers?
Has anybody been on that property?
I haven't been on the trails
I
in
spoke
that
to her a
way
couple-
lately.
A couple weeks ago.
I know the highway department, there's a cemetery somewhere on the
Yeah.
back of the property, and they maintain.
But that's
up-
accessible off Pickett Street.
Yeah, they maintain out to the cemetery because they maintain the
I
cemetery.
think I have 3 here.
I mean, I would just-
But beyond that, I
So you have-
don't
I would
think
just
it's up
wanna
to
know that
Yes,
we have the capacity to maintain
That's
it.
right.
I mean, you know,
Not,
We're not maintaining it
well,
now.
maybe the highway department will do it, or maybe the parks department will do it. We should know that going forward, I just think, if we wanna maintain this open space. If you
Oh,
wanna
So
just
again,
not give
I think-
anybody
so-
access.
So what I had said then, maybe add that as a condition to move forward, that, you know, Conservation Commission would recommend the approval of the negotiation for purchase, so long as legal access and easements are worked out, the property's cleaned up, and
Maintain.
the town has the capacity somewhere within existing to
Well-
maintain.
well, we do have, I mean, your budget has enough funds in order to, have a field agent, to have, you know, to pay someone to maintain or to organize, you know, cleanup days.
Doesn't sound like anybody's doing the Vickers property.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it sounds that way, but we can't even get someone to pay for the work that's been done so
Done.
far.
Yeah.
So it-
On the
Cowboy
cowboy
shack.
shack, that
Yeah.
hasn't been painted?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so far we're just getting the runaround, so.
So that's a legitimate issue, would be a legitimate issue for
Yeah.
them, taking on more and more, not.
Does
maintain what
Wildland
you
Trust
have.
have any hiking trails on their property?
I don't believe there's any trails across through,
Or is there even
Joan.
any public access onto their property?
yeah, well, I
No.
think, well, so it's still owned by Joan Morton, they just have a
they
CR.
hold the CR, gotcha.
They hold a CR over that.
Okay, so does the CR say anything about public access or trails?
I don't know, I mean, Glenn just came to us last week.
That
Oh,
would be
okay.
another thing
And I
to
have
look.
I have
to
a
look
right of way
into.
that goes right across
Mhm.
Joni's property, so I can come.
Oh,
Right.
so you
Property
can
back.
get to it with your tractor?
Yeah, oh.
Take
with-
care of the trails?
With my truck. Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't been, I mean, the past couple of springs, stuff has grown up so much, I can't believe it.
Right. Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
So that was my other point, even though I know you didn't necessarily agree, but Wildlands Trust does hold a CR on this. And if we were to take this, then I feel the more CRs the better. Just being under the town or Article 97 doesn't protect. Wildlands Trust is a sustainable organization that takes care and oversees all their properties. Agreed?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
So it would be worth the town or us, if it's in our budget or whatever, to, whenever they take a land under CR, they ask for like a, what's the word? I wanna say
Fee.
annuity, but, yeah, a
Yeah.
small fee, like Bob did.
He doesn't think it was small.
What?
He didn't say it was small.
It was 22 acres and, oh, wow.
No, I
it's
mean,
probably-
the money he had to put up.
Right, and then that would be in perpetuity, they would watch it.
Yeah.
I've never thought that the town of Lakeville has that ability. As it
Oh,
is, the
that's-
Pickens property is, it needs love. And unless somebody takes it upon themselves to do it,
But will they buy it?
no, they won't buy it. We own
So
it.
we would buy it?
They would have a conservation, they would own the conservation restriction
Restriction.
on it, so they have staff that goes out
So
and,
can they restrict our public's access?
no, they wouldn't. Well, they would work
It would
with
be
us.
laid out in the conservation
Yeah.
restriction,
Yeah.
acceptable
Well, that might
uses
be
of
a
the
way to go.
property.
They don't like to have
Things like
property that
that.
doesn't have public access.
Okay.
So, and seeing as this already has the public access, and I'm not sure what the Joe Morton's, but we can, let's say there's a lot more research that needs to go into this.
Do we know
Wow.
what the price is?
No, no, not really. I mean, I generally know what he's thinking about, for a price.
And how many acres is
But
it?
until I walk
30.
it,
30.
30
30
acres
acres.
He has
roughly.
40, he's looking to sell the town 30.
Yeah, he wants to sell the house with about 10 acres of land.
And you don't wanna tell us how much? He's thinking
Not,
about
not
it.
at this point, until we sit down and actually negotiate. I wanted to make sure that both this board and the Open Space Committee, because it's the Open Space Committee that would bring it forward
Yeah,
to probably the CPC to request funding. So, yeah, so before there was any sort of public
I got you.
disclosure of price.
Have you met with Open Space yet?
Thursday,
You will be.
yep.
And I believe Scott McFadden from Wildlands Trust is
Ooh.
coming to the open space meeting.
So yes, so Scott McFadden, so the meeting is at 5:30, starting at the senior center, if anyone would like to attend. Scott McFadden, the original purpose was, I set this up before, I talked to Glenn about his property. The original purpose was to begin discussions on, how the Open Space Committee should be moving forward in approaching landowners, and whether they should hold like a public information session, what are the types of acquisitions, how to negotiate, kind of that whole, just a general first meeting with because he is a land acquisition specialist for the Wildlands Trust, so I thought
John
it'd be
knows that.
thought it'd be a real good kind of
it
first
seems like a nice
step.
guy, I've talked to him.
Yeah, he is
Seems like a
really.
nice guy.
What's the date and time of that meeting?
This,
5:30 on Thursday.
But he also doesn't make the bottom line decisions, as you well know.
Right.
John.
5:30, Thursday.
Thursday
Where?
at the senior
Senior
center.
center.
Which should be August 10th.
Well, it looks like the two pieces that he's willing to sell to the town, one of them has some wetlands and the other one has Hathaway Brook. So I think it makes sense to take them, and if we can extend a trail network, maybe from the Vigors into those. If Wildland Trust has any CR allowability for trails, I think if you can make Vigors a bigger property, more people get exposed to it, and maybe you get volunteers to help maintain it.
Maybe.
Or it sounds like there might be some money in the budget for us to maintain it.
Yeah, I mean, there is funding in your budget,
So
so.
Is there a motion?
A motion to say what? What do we want to say? If there's still a lot of stuff to happen before we say,
what are you looking
Mayor.
for?
Well, I mean, I'd be looking for,
Generally in
is
favor of vote, that sort of thing.
generally the commission, you know, pending, you know, the details, but is in favor of accepting this property should, you know, a favorable agreement be worked out that addresses issues related to public access, you know, debris on the property and parking. So,
And maintenance, overall, that maintenance, which is, that would be an ongoing town thing. I just think it's wise for John to say it, so that
Mhm.
going into that, people realize that there's a
Yes.
possible small cost
mhm.
in addition to the purchase to go
Right.
with it.
I would make that motion that Mark just laid out.
I'll second Josh's motion.
A motion and a second.
so to be clear, in favor as long as all the issues can be worked out, public access, debris cleaned up, maintenance, etc.
Parking
Parking.
In parking area.
off of the Elliott.
Well,
Bank.
public access / parking,
Mhm.
okay.
Do we agree with that?
It does look like there's some wetlands right off of Elliott's Way as well, on
Yep.
one of the maps, so
Yeah, it is pretty wet, man.
you'll have to figure out where the parking actually makes sense, but yeah.
So we have a motion, a second, and a clarification of what that motion was.
Okay.
So do we have to vote on the clarification?
No, that's
No,
just,
it's just
part,
restating.
it's part of the motion at
Please.
this point. Yeah.
I love these ones.
All those in, no. we have a
So
motion
did
and
somebody
a
second it?
Yeah, Mark
Yeah,
seconded.
Mark
It's a
seconded
second,
it.
so
Okay.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, awesome.
Motion to adjourn, or do you have other
Second.
business, Mr. Chair?
No, I don't have any more business.
Motion to adjourn.